The SADC Council of Ministers meeting is taking place in Durban today. It precedes the 46th Ordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government and follows the SADC Senior Officials meetings. Ministers oversee regional integration programs and the execution of past summit decisions. For more on this, we cross live to our specialist correspondent, Sophie Mokoena. A very good morning to you, Sophie. Perhaps let's start with you taking us through the message of the outgoing SADC Council Ministers chairperson.
You know that Zimbabwe was the current chair of the Council of Ministers. Minister Amon Marwira was very frank on issues facing the region, but also a subtle message as it relates to the current migration challenges that we have experienced in the region, particularly in South Africa, emphasizing that it is important for the region to be united and shun whatever form or attempts to cause disunity in the region. He was also frank on the issue of dependence of countries amongst others. In other words, a country that is more prosperous, having to work with other countries that are struggling, but also reminding countries that other countries are also depending on those poorer countries where they send their products as part of export and imports. And therefore, he was quite frank that there's a need for the region to unite, but also lamenting the fact that the issue of regional integration is not moving in a speed that it should. Also highlighting the fact that they will have to concentrate on the issue of building strong industries on the continent using the minerals of the continent, particularly the rare earth minerals. And he was also frank to wish South Africa well, as we know that the current minister, Ronald Lamola, has now taken over as the chair of the Council of Ministers of the regional organization SADC.
Now, speaking of Minister Ronald Lamola, let's talk about his acceptance speech. Talk us through the contents thereof.
I think he started by painting a picture in terms of the venue, the Chief Albert Luthuli International Convention Center, the historic moment the country witnessed when the African Union was launched. But he started by indicating that the name Chief Albert Luthuli is associated with peace. Secondly, one of the leaders of the former liberation organization, or the liberation organization, the African National Congress, saying that to prove a point that we are integrated as the region, the borders are there, yes, to manage movement of people. Chief Albert Luthuli was born in Bulawayo, KwaBulawayo, in Zimbabwe. He moved to South Africa and to this province where he became a teacher and became the leader of the African National Congress, and therefore indicating the historic ties in the region, but also saying the Chief Albert Luthuli Convention Center hosted very critical international conferences. One, the UN Conference Against Racism, Xenophobia and All Forms of Intolerance was hosted here, and the declaration was adopted. The UN declaration that we have on racism, xenophobia and all forms of intolerance was adopted here. The other important history to remember, the African Union was launched here, and therefore him saying it is important to remember those historic moments, particularly at the time where we are talking about forms of discrimination, the issue of migration, challenging his peers to discuss migration and in all its facets or its forms. Yeah. But lastly, he spoke about a need to ensure that as the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly will be electing the new Secretary General of the United Nations, the SADC region and member states must lobby hard that the next Secretary General of the United Nations is going to be a woman, and therefore asking his peers or his colleagues in the region to go out there and lobby other countries, particularly at the time where Zimbabwe will be taking its rotational seat next year as a member of the Security Council of the United Nations, to lobby that when announcement is made of a new Secretary General of the UN, that should be a woman for the first time in the history of the world body.
So if it sounds like he left no current issue untackled in that address, but what can we expect then in the coming days?
In the coming days, the President of South Africa, who is the incoming chair of SADC, we know that he's now an interim chair of SADC because of the current challenge in Madagascar, will deliver a lecture talking about the importance of SADC, linking it to the organization of the continent, that is the African Union, the continental body, but also looking at global issues. And then, of course, on Saturday, the Troika, peace, security, and politics, the Troika will meet, and Malawi will hand over to the next country that is going to chair the Troika. On Monday, then, the heads of state and government summit will get underway, and that's where South Africa will officially take over as the chair of the regional organization that is the Community of the Southern Africa.